What if I told you the way it has always been done is not the best way? Facing your fears will change your life. The passion behind this journey is merging two separate worlds into one with the goal of creating value and awareness for a better life.
I'd rather be sidelined trying to achieve greatness than watch greatness achieved and it only set on the sideline. Now introducing your host, Jacob Emery.
This episode is brought to you by R&R Pipeline, an infrastructure company. Our purpose? Enhancing America's infrastructure with a safety-driven, integrity-led culture that provides an environment for team members to grow and thrive. Welcome to another edition of the Iron and Infrastructure Podcast. Today I'm sitting down with a man that is chasing edges at all facets of life. He is a retired professional football player. Incredible story. We have a friendship from a father figure, Dr. Eric Serrano, and a bond like no other because of that man. Brian Peters. This man, for those of you that don't know him, is absolutely legendary in performance enhancement through breathing technique, recovery. All about making you better with what you already have that you don't have to go buy. He has the why and can present you the how, and it is very powerful. He is constantly chasing edges. Brian Peters, welcome to the show.
Dude, pumped to be here. It's been a long time coming. I've been on the road about 6 of the last 8 months. So
yeah, every time I talk to you, you're like, hey, I'll be gone here or there till next week. I'm going to go see the Green Bay Packers. I'm going here.
Yeah,
so
I'm hustling, man. It's a lot of it's kicking up business and selling and trying to figure out ways to get into certain organizations. It's just a problem that I'm continually solving, but a lot of it requires grunt work, and I travel with a mobile sauna for some of my workshops, so that means just miles and miles.
It is such a big issue in society, not just performance enhancement, but society in general. So you helped change my life. My sleeping is minimal at best, so 5 6 hours a night if I'm lucky, but now it's high quality sleep where it was never quality sleep before. So fatigue, sinus infections. I mean, I would be fatigued and have some sort of sinus infection monthly almost, where it just completely exhausted me. And I remember sitting in the gym one day and you're like, bro, just tape your mouth shut. And I'm like, this man has done lost it. This guy's crazy. Changed my life. And I've prescribed it to so many people whenever they say they can't sleep, they snore a lot, have sinus infections all the time. It sounds so wild to think that that's going to be such a big thing, but the first time I did it, man, I think I told you the other day, heart rate went down 10 or 15 beats a minute right away, and I just felt like peace. It was so wild.
Yeah, and it is low-hanging fruit, and it sounds stupid and psychotic and all these things, but it's how we're supposed to breathe. And so there's a whole history here to why it's not completely accessible to us at all times, mostly because our brain is more am I alive or dead kind of concept. Mm-hmm. And so it's it doesn't really care how we compensate. It doesn't care, mouth breathing's easier, so it's path of least resistance, which humans are elite at. Obviously you can see in modern society today. Yeah. But just the mouth taping when you're sleeping, I think, is such an easy fix. And again, this isn't a fix for everybody. When you start talking about larger humans with bigger necks, mm-hmm. and then even into the obesity world, it gets a little bit harder to solve this problem. But in the simplest form, nose is respiratory, mouth is digestive and communicative. So in that capacity, and then you look at the benefits to mouth and nasal breathing, the biggest one being what does it say to our brain, our brain stem in that realm too, is nose says is a parasympathetic tone, rest, digest, recover. Mouth is fight and flight. So if you're breathing through your mouth while you're sleeping, you're just telling yourself awake. So you're telling yourself that you're awake. So you notice that a lot of people, when they transition to mouth tape, or the goal is to just keep the mouth closed. So mouth tape works for a lot of people. One of the big reasons is to keep that jaw from dropping back and impeding the airway, which also leads to snoring. So there's mouthpieces that hook mm-hmm. the teeth forward. Obviously, you've seen nasal strips, which is just supposed to aid in the nasal passageway that might not be there. But anyways, all these things are just one to lock in that the one input you're getting is rest, digest, and then there's 28 benefits to the nose. cleans the air, humidifies the air. It's a lower breath, like anatomically. Well, okay, why is a lower breath? So like if you're breathing through your mouth, usually like your chest and your shoulders rise, breathing through your nose, just a little bit lower, belly breath, whatever. But the goal is that the biggest part of the lungs at the bottom, the most dense oxygen exchange occurs at the bottom, and all these things compound into a slower respiratory rate, slower heart rate. Inhaling and exhaling affects the heart rate differently, but just pace of breathing trumps everything. But just nose is smaller airway, so it takes longer to fill. There's more resistance, and everything slows down. And in a very simple analogy, if you look at the respiratory rate and the heart rate, like a wind chime, if this is calm, body's calm. So now you get all these awesome benefits. You get better oxygen uptake. You get parasympathetic rest and digest tone. It's illogical not to breathe through your nose, particularly while you sleep. But it's also like, again, you're a structure systems based human, but like if you look at it logically, if I can't breathe right at rest, I'm not going to breathe right in whatever my stressor is in life. If that's the business world, if that's public speaking, if that's weightlifting, high performance, sports, whatever your hobbies are in that realm, it's like, okay. And that's why like I coach ice tub and sauna and stuff like that, but like performance anxiety affects a lot of humans in all capacities of life. But like how you're breathing right before you start your stressor is really your foundation for like what like is available to you in the stressor. So I start with sleep, I start with how you breathe at rest, and then we start getting into the high performance. But like all this stuff leads to one, it really just protects your thinking. And like I consider high performance nothing more than fast-paced decision making. Whether you're negotiating, whether I'm making calls on the football field, it doesn't matter. But I want to keep all my human capacity to solve problems fast. But really what it does is when that wind chime gets crazy, blood flow leaves the prefrontal cortex, you become reactive as opposed to this calculated cold killer that's playing chess in life as opposed to reacting.
So you can make moves faster, more strategic, and have more like awareness exactly in that moment. And I look at it from basic human. We evolve and deteriorate our bodies and our habits as humans. When we're born, we have binkies that are something in our mouth. We breathe through our nose. I have never seen a full-grown human have squat form like a baby does. A baby can sit there doing a pistol squat all day, playing, messing around, never move out of that function, doesn't bother them. I squat down for 5 minutes and I can't move for a week, right? Basic human function devolves as we grow, older. And so I would say that the breathing through the nose is probably the biggest return on investment with minimal cost, if any, for someone that is looking for a foundational structure for any type of performance. Sleeping is part of that. Recovery, training, speaking engagements. I know that I have caught myself in the past being a mouth breather, and now I'm aware of it. So there's times where I have a deviated septum, broke nose like 10 times, and this side doesn't work, like it's clogged. And I wanted to go get surgery, and Sarno said absolutely not. Got the left side cleared out enough, and I just had to focus on my breathing performance. And so when I became aware of that, not only am I able to cognitively understand when it's happening, when I'm going down that wrong path of, oh, it's kind of stuffy in here today, I'm breathing through my mouth, my throat gets dry, I can't talk very well, I don't feel very good. Like I can notice it now, where you can probably elaborate a lot more on the science behind of it, but the little things I notice now where before I didn't, it takes a lot less breath through your nose and a lot higher return than it does when you go through your mouth with a lot lower return.
Yeah, and so just like when you start talking about cost benefit analysis there too, in that realm, so you get 10 to 20% more oxygen uptake just breathing through the nose, because like now you get into nitric oxide. Like we take pre-workout, like people take beetroot, like that's really high in like high performance right now. They're giving athletes beetroot, but it's a vasodilator. Like we're chasing that pump, but really we're looking at oxygen delivery. Yep. And so all these things stack up. So the 10 to 20% more oxygen uptake, super important in my world. But now, like obviously the pace of breathing and like your piece, like very important in that realm too. But what you start to learn, dry mouth, dry throat, breathing through the mouth dehydrates you 30% faster. And so now
it's so true too. It's huge.
And all these fields, and part of the, like, again, path of least resistance, humans will default. You get one sinus infection as a kid, you might default for years or a lifetime. it doesn't matter in that realm. But like everything, again, I look at nature to solve a lot of problems, and psychology, physiology, X, Y, and Z. But in that realm, what's a really clear way to say it is, sorry, dude, I lost my train of thought. The goal of the breathing, again, the law of nature is basically like, a lot of people in the weight world would say like, you rest, you rust. But if in nature, if you're stagnant, you rot. But the nasal cavity space, it's not just like your nose. It's like, okay, cheekbone to cheekbone, but it also like goes back to like almost like your ear depth in that realm. But that's it. If you don't use it, you lose it kind of space. So if you stop breathing, so like I see this with pro athletes, because like, again, athletes are the best compensators. Doesn't mean they're the most functional in that realm, but they don't have the nasal cavity space, because once any intensity increases, and you see this with hikers and ruckers and military and stuff too, right when they start moving, default. No, but when you bring back like closing your mouth and breathing in with intensity, you'll get space. That friction will trigger, like now you get into the capillaries and this really fragile membrane in the nose, and you'll clear the space open. So like a lot of times when people say, oh, I have a stuffy nose, I'll tape their mouth closed for 5 or 10 minutes. Then I go, like, it's really a lack of patience thing and a lack of like awareness, but and it'll open back up. Or I'll tape people's mouth, because like, if they get anxiety, taping their mouth when they go to sleep, start 30 minutes before you go to bed. And so now,
Yeah, so your brain is, by the time you lay down, your brain's already, it's already
and so
wired.
you just have to recondition yourself. But like, this is a lifetime of like, in essence, like compensation, where like the whole history here, because dentists actually found a lot of this when they're working in people's mouths, that people couldn't breathe through their nose. But now you get into infancy and you understand how our body wants to use oxygen. Our body uses oxygen as an anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiviral. Like people have started to like utilize this with ozone, which is O3, to like spray surfaces with this ozone to kill bacteria on the top. But our body uses it the same way. But now you start looking at how an infant breathes. And again, I look at the history of breathing too, but like one of the first books ever written was like 1890 by this dude, George Gatlin. He went around to Native American tribes, and probably is all the way from like Canada all the way down to Central America. But he found out that most of the tribes were in tune with like their health and breathing in that realm, mostly to the fact that, one, they're so in touch with nature that they lacked a lot of like the diseases and the infant mortality rates that like cities did at that time. But they were calling settlers and people that were mouth breathing in general black mouth. And they knew intuitively that if somebody in their tribe was breathing through their mouth at rest, they were sick or they're dying, and they should be isolated from the tribe in like another TP.
Well, they know right away it's an advantage.
Yeah, it's
Like
an advantage.
Combat, any type of conflict, you have an upper hand.
And hunters around the world from all types of cultures, humans' advantage is thermoregulation and our aerobic capacity, our ability to sweat. Like, look, no other animal has our ability to sweat in that capacity, but we would outrun deer, antelope, buffalo, like lions. It doesn't matter. We'll outrun them. We'll run them into the ground. But these people that would be running for 7-8 miles up elevation, they wouldn't leave their nose. But so anyways, like once I learned that, like, okay, in the history of life, like we knew that mouth breathing's bad. It's an insult now as a joke, like Eli Manning or something like that, you know? But now you understand why, and like, okay, what, like, cause like, and then they would also, like, Native Americans would also put their infants in the snow for like 5-10 minutes in the wintertime. If they were mouth breathing as infants, they'd pinch their lips closed, and that's something we can still do today.
That's what you teach almost, right?
Yeah, I teach that, and I do it with all my buddies that have kids in that realm too, and I have them teach them really young how to use breathing to downregulate the hysterical crying and that kind of thing. But okay, why? Well, okay, look at the ingredients on formula, and like it's like I've seen people struggle with breastfeeding and that kind of thing, but also we quit pretty quick. And I'm not hating on the mothers out there, but also you put 40 ingredients in a formula into a baby's stomach, the body's going to solve problems. Well, okay, what's the only benefit to the mouth is oxygen and CO2 in and out faster, more tidal volume. Well, okay, my body's going to switch to solve this problem, And then just obviously stomach being like, again, the second brain, like the first line, like one of the biggest lines of defense and immune system function, nose being one of those filters for that as well. But like if I put 40 ingredients in here that are foreign, now I'm going to default to get more oxygen in, and now I'm going to become a mouth breather and then now you get into soft food diets.
Because it's quantity, not quality at that point, right?
And then, but it's just like two bang bangs to like infant kids is then we start them on soft food diets. And it's like, okay, now like we're not chewing, so we don't, and now there's this massive correlation. This is where Dennis, there's this awesome book called Jaws, if anybody's interested, and then the George Gatlin book on like the history back in like the 1800s is called Shut Your Mouth, Save Your Life. But Jaws, that all these dentists, I think it was revised and pumped out in 2018, but they found out that this soft food diet led to more narrow jaws, more protruded facial structure and noses. And that's why like even people at
the development's not there,
the
right?
development's not there, so the space isn't there, which again makes it harder for people to get through the night, potentially with their mouth tape, because one, they don't have the nasal cavity space because they've been defaulting when any intensity comes up. They had soft food diet, they've been mouth breathing since they're an infant, on and off and that kind of thing. But like what you'll see is when people do shift to nasal breathing long term, their facial structure will start to change. And then you start again becoming aware and intentional about, okay, now I'm going to over chew my food, and you'll redefine your face structure.
Is there also a correlation to the food that we have available today with
Oh, yeah.
processed food? It's so palatable. It's like 3 bites, a whole sandwich is down.
Yeah.
And it's easy to chew it, swallow it, and you don't have to spend much time. Where eating a steak or anything that's whole natural food, it's red meat, it's veggies, you got to chew the shit out of it because it's real, right?
Yeah.
So is that part of that?
Yeah,
dynamic?
all that bleeds into this natural effect. And to your point earlier, you're talking about the infant squat, like their mobility and that kind of thing. Again, like humans, like we're awesome at path of least resistance and what's easy. And again, like and then like my dad, like I don't know if you ever met John Thoma, but he was kind of a disciple of Dr. Serrano back in the day. But he trained me when I was in high school. And he was a biology teacher, but he was just like fitness and health enthusiast to the max. Like he was an extremist where like he had this definition of like perfection to him was the abandonment of all things unnecessary and the pursuit of optimal performance.
I like that.
So he just all in like commitment kind of guy. So like his phone's on like for 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night, it's off, like EMFs, shuts electricity off in his room, like psycho, like in a really special way. But he was this guy implementing these things to me and opening my eyes to the fact that like, what's the first misstep in our invention for ease? And he argues like feet, so like shoes and chairs, because that's what starts to take away. Because like you look at Japan, you look at India, like one of their easiest, lowest hanging metrics for health is like, can you get up off the ground without using your hands? And like a lot of Americans later in life can't do that. And it's like, we're talking about hip and ankle and foot mobility and strength. But in Arizona right now, he works with a lot of senior citizens, and they get this concept called doll legs, where their legs get locked because they're basically operating at like 20% of their range of motion, but eventually.
Well, it starts with not being grounded, right?
Yeah.
So like your feet don't develop. It's like wearing gloves all the time. How are your hands going to be?
And then you look at human patterns, like the older and older you get, the thicker and thicker your shoes get. It's just a compensation pattern. But these people would basically lose feel and function of their legs, and they have to, now they're just like peg legging and using the walker. He'd have them walk around the senior center barefoot for 2 weeks, and they'd get feel and range of motion back. The mind is that malleable, but it's cerebellum activity, it's foot. Like we need input, like we need feedback loops. But when you start dulling and taking away all the feedback loops, function fades.
You're just disconnected.
Like you rest, you rust. It's a law of nature. You stagnate, you rot.
Because our brains are not wired to enhance our bodies; they're wired to survive. So they compensate. They take the path of least resistance, and whatever it is, detrimental to us or not, they don't know any better. It's just survival.
Your brain's alive or dead, and that bleeds into all. Like honestly, like I get frustrated with how like psychology's taught and like the lack of understanding people have of the animal that they are, and like it shows up in so many ways. Like the negativity bias in the brain, which again.
We're programmed to be negative.
We're programmed to be negative, and it stops so many people from living a life they want, moving, like fearing discomfort, like X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter. Because, okay, well, why is remembering negative things really important? Well, okay, bear bites me, I don't fuck with bears. Like, I eat these berries and I shit myself, I probably shouldn't eat those. I remember negative things for, like,
The sun is hot, I got burned, I don't touch it.
yeah,
you know?
and it's like I go against the tribe, I get kicked out of the tribe, or I backstab somebody in the tribe, I get kicked out of the tribe. Like, so there is these conformity sides to some of this stuff too. But like, okay, but if I give, like, my recipe for people is grit and grace. Like, if you work and you have a system and you know how to like consistently show up, then you have enough grace for yourself to know, hey, why am I being so negative and fearful and doubtful? Well, my animal's just being my animal. I'm using my hardware. I'm not outdated. Survival instinct. And so it's like, okay, now if I can use that to navigate the modern world a little better, working on this outdated software. And then now I understand like what breathing is. I understand that I have this tool that, like, in my realm, I teach mental skills and breathing because it's a two-way street. Like, psychology problems, like depression and all these negativity things, and like basically it's like psychology can be unresolved physiology. And what you've learned is that, like, if I have an awareness of what's going on, I can stop, intersect, and change it. Okay, so I want breathing and physiology tools because I use vision, I use a bunch of different modalities there. But also, like, I can think myself into very shitty physiology. Like, I can think about people dying like that I love and stupid analogies like that. But I can like performance anxiety, like think myself into very short, jittery like physiology. So it's like, okay, I need mental skills here to like talk this way to it, and then I need to understand. And the first step here is I need to be aware of when I'm mouth breathing or when my physiology is getting short and shallow and fast and the wind chime's going crazy. In that realm, so I can intercept and change it. But most people, like, I call it, like, I function off this like competence confidence scale. I'm messing that up. Consciousness competence scale, sorry. Where most people are just, again, haven't been, like, people may have told you to breathe at one point in your life, but they never coached you to breathe or taught you what it is. But it's any skill in life. Most people, until you know or even are perceptive of the skill, but you're unconsciously incompetent in that realm. My goal as a coach is to make you consciously incompetent and then teach you tools, tactics, programming, and systems, whatever, to make you consciously, like, eventually consciously competent. And then the goal of mastery in anything is to make it unconscious again, unconscious competence. And that's where you see the best in the world. Like, they can execute the same, like a same level thing with less brain space. So now this repetition of efficiency and function of the baseline skills are just like second nature. So now they have room for like the complex and the nuances that make them the Kobe Bryants and the Michael Jordans of the world.
We often think that we need more information or another tool or anything like that, but rarely does anybody max out the capacity of what they already know. And so, like, back to the basics, I talk about it frequently about you probably have the tools and the information that you need to solve any problem that you have. You just haven't put enough time in to get better at the thing that you're trying to overcome. So get better until you physically and mentally cannot do any more with the time that you have. So get better, and that should be the focus. Get better in this one thing that I'm good at until I can't get any better, and then get bigger. So change it at that point where you shift to, I'm a marketing agent, I'm doing this, I cannot do any more with time and the capacity that I have. So I hire someone. So now I move to a bigger thing, and then get better, max that out first before going to the next. I'm an information overload human, so I consume way more than I can implement. And I talk about information versus implementation. Information is only as good as the implementation. So having a vision without having someone that can implement it is just a dream. It's really not something tangible until it can be implemented. It's very hard for us as humans, though, to think about that. We often react with what's the new thing, what's the flashy thing, when basic breathing and this part of it can be so beneficial and big. Don't try to go to the 10th step if the first step's not taken care of. The building isn't going to go up without the foundation being solid. So make a solid foundation, and it takes plenty of time and practice to do that. Instant gratification is why most people don't, though, because it's not fun, it's boring, it's tedious, it's continuous, it's every day,
Yeah, and
nonstop, and it never ends.
And that's what I mean. Like I always look for like the cleanest definitions of things in general, but like what is success? Like the overarching summary of that is short-term deferment for like, again, long-term gain in that realm.
It's giving up pleasure for the purpose.
Yeah.
You know.
But again, back to your point where like I just want to make it so easy for this to become non-negotiable for people in that realm, or sleep.
Yeah.
Like in general, like I use a very simple analogy where like, again, we're phone humans, like at this point in life now, but like if you went to sleep, we all plug our phones in at night to some extent or at some point during the day, but if you plugged your phone in and you woke up in the morning and your phone was at 60%, like you'd solve that fucking problem. Like you get a new phone or you get a new charger. We don't do that with ourselves. And we want a full battery to attack work, money, love, life, like whatever it is we want to do in life. But like and that's why you have to know how you feel. You have to know what your battery's at. And that's why, again, if you can't breathe right at rest, you can't breathe right in performance. And that, like, why would I not start with sleep? I want a battery. I want my battery charged. And so if you can tangibilize that, hopefully it makes it a priority for you, because again, and then I think breathing's this awesome tool to like transition you in and out. Like I want to go home and like be the good dad after. I don't want to bring work home and like be a bad husband or whatever it ends up being. So can I have the awareness? And because like dude, the easy thing is you'll notice in life where like rush hour traffic, if you're exhausted, you'll default to mouth breathing. Like again, the human brain's not supposed to go 80 miles per hour on the highway either. So it's like it'll default. Like next time you watch like a scary or like action movie, you'll default. Like your brain is this like, or so your breath is this intersection between the mind and the body where it'll tell you what's going on, but again, it has to fall into your awareness and your consciousness again. And so, but like regardless of the fact, dude, if you can start and fix your sleep, and if you take your sleep like a pro, and that means pre-sleep routine, post-sleep routine, because like sleep hygiene starts when you wake up. We're talking about circadian rhythm, and again, it all comes back to nature. Is that like your body operates with the sun? We're light and dark like base creatures, and again, we're an ignorant species. Where like I already said, like the first misstep in human like invention was shoes and chairs. Now get to electricity. We're this ignorant species that thinks we have eternal daylight, that fucks up our hormones, that fucks up our sleep.
We're not meant to be up at night.
No, we're like, but like these lights, like it change everything, and our eyes read light angle. So it's like, or like we get blasted with light as you're brushing your teeth, and you're just messing up your ability to sleep. And so now you have to supplement, and now you're just chasing your tail, and you're doing that whole, again, you're like, it's really the whole like addiction physiology is where like it becomes a problem, because now it takes more of this dose or more of this substance to make me function or sleep.
The problem is often not the thing that we're acknowledging, right? So what seems to be obvious on the surface is normally much bigger and more glaringly obvious from a third person view. So for me, when I'm faced with situations where I don't really ever feel stress, but pressure, I feel like the weight of the world. And I can feel it because my neck's tight, my posture's bad, probably breathing through my mouth, not even realizing it. I have been able to, I came up with like a 5-step problem solving guide for myself. But the first step is presentation. And I present the facts of the situation to myself. But I'm sitting here, you're sitting there, I'm really sitting over there as a third party, non-biased person looking in on the situation. What is the reality from a logical standpoint? No emotion attached. So if I am thinking purely on logic, what is the fact of the situation? What does the data say? Before I let any emotion come in or any of my preference or bias come in, presentation of the reality. Just that alone, conscious of my breathing, present the facts, it has solved 75% of my issues before I even open my mouth and acknowledge the problem. And so that ability to filter out the reality is very, very difficult for people that cannot slow down, be conscious. I'm a very driven person, you're a very driven person. The biggest thing to us accelerating our success is being able to find peace and being present. Being present is extremely difficult for driven people. So being driven and having peace is a reality for me now. It is a reality for you. And I've taken programs, I went through courses to expose areas of weakness. Best thing I could have ever done, because I have driven myself to a point where sometimes the present moment is completely not, I'm not there. But being present is a gift. Right now, this is a gift. So think about when you get a gift for Christmas. It's a present. It's presented that way. Being present is a gift, and it truly is. You cannot have grace, gratitude, understand greatness. You can't do a lot of things if you cannot be in the moment. And you can't be in the moment a lot of time if you're not aware of how you breathe from a basic level.
What your body's doing. And like, dude, I mean, you peppered so many of my favorite things right there. I mean, there's so many ways to strip that back with like my perspective. One, like, yeah, like it's a gift to see the world for what it is and like see how I'm responding to the inputs anyways. And like that level of awareness, presence, consciousness, like whatever you want to call it.
Emotional regulation.
Yeah. And which again, I think it's a superpower because I use to like strip back some of like, get my narratives out of there, get my prejudice and things out of there. I journal, and I journal from that 10,000 foot, that 100 foot, like that kind of concept to where, but also like, I think it's one, like you became aware of like the problems that come from it in that realm. But I don't think people do a great job of asking themselves like realistic questions, or even asking themselves questions in general. Like, because if you sit there and ask like, hey, well, why am I feeling this way? I just play the why game, play 5 whys.
Yep.
In that realm, like, okay, well, like, I think I'm stressed because of this. Well, why? Okay, well, it's actually probably because like I don't really like that person, or like I overextended my finances or whatever. Like, well, why? Well, like you find out these roots and these what's real, and then it becomes, once you strip back all this kind of like the wrapping on this gift, in essence, you'll find that like everything's comes down to these moment feelings and moment decisions that have repercussions. Where if you're clear in the moment, if you have tools, processes, whatever, to always just kind of bring you back. And like even you like in my world, like breathing falls into meditation and things like that. It's
So does journaling. Journaling is a form of meditation.
And it's writing meditation, walking is moving meditation, however you want to view that world, but it brings you back. And it's neuroplasticity. The mind wanders, bring it back. The mind wanders, bring it back. It's like what our brain is built to do in that realm. And you can like strip back psychology in this whole realm too. Like, and it's very simple. Like obviously, I think we can solve a lot of our regrets in that realm, like from this point moving forward in that realm by like full commitment, full effort, and full awareness. Where like if you're like, whether I won or lost at any point in my life, the only time I had regrets is like if I didn't go all in on it. Because like where I struggled is like, oh, I could have done more, blah, blah, blah. But if I know I did everything, like win or loss, I can eat that shit,
right.
you know, in that realm. And then now, like in the future, you can't change anything in the future. Like you can't control it. So like the whole goal is like strip away the future. Like obviously you can be prepared for it, strip away the past, and like our memories are trash too. Like the farther we get from it, like there's this whole distancing and scaling aspect to it too, in that realm where now it's like I can only live in like a 2-day window anyways. And then so now I'm already stripping away all this tension and pressure that potentially is on the body, because you're thinking about problems from 2 years ago or things you never solved, or maybe you see how you look in the mirror and you're blaming your habits for 2.5 years or whatever. And then, but now it's like if you understand how the brain works in the future too, like the farther in the future you choose from values as opposed to execution, and I know you're just a fucking killer executioner in that realm, where it's like you can't think about like and all these commitments months in the future, because like a very easy example is like, hey, my brother asked me to watch the kids next month because like they're going to a show or something stupid. But in that realm, like I'm a good brother. I'm choosing from values as opposed to execution, because really that's on my busiest day with work. They want me there at rush hour. Like it becomes a problem. So it like gets away from our like choice of execution. And then in the past, and like I just think I think this structure is freeing, because even though we're speaking English, like this, I'm kind of taking a left turn, but like we're speaking different languages because we have different relationships with every word and every concept in the human language. In that realm where it's like, if I talk to you about happiness, like, okay, well, like we need an example to find like a metric. Well, it's like, what's your family singing happy birthday to you? Oh, that's a 7.9 out of 10 on your scale. Well, it's a 6.3 on mine, because I don't like happiness and my family. It's a whole different relationship. So even though we're talking about happiness, we're not speaking about happiness. My happiness is different than your happiness, and like obviously everybody has different things that like bring them joy. But it's like this should give you like it should limit me from comparing myself to you, because we're not even using the same scale.
Right.
And then now the fun part here is for myself, because I do this all the time. In that realm is I can't compare myself to the person I was yesterday, because I have a new scale. because even though it's one more day of experience, but this should be freeing when you start looking back at the person you were a year ago or the habits and 2 years ago. Is like, no, I'm a completely different fucking person. So now I should be able to just hopefully drop some of that, understand that our memory, we really like remembering, like our memory is trash, like legitimate trash when you look in the past. So it's like, okay, history's gone, check, like I can't change it. I can't predict the future. I live in this window, and I have tools to regulate how I want, from like work to home, and like conversation to conversation, negotiation to negotiation, snap to snap. In football, it doesn't matter. Like life becomes this present of being here, having all my like human capabilities and problem solving there, and now I'm a fucking superhero, you know?
You said so many good things. I I learned a very valuable lesson. Everything that happened for me in life did not happen to me. I am not a victim of my circumstance, and nobody else is. Is there bias in the world? Absolutely. Are there bad people that do bad things? Yes. Racism, sexism, prejudice, it's all out there. Are people born with a disadvantage compared to others? Yes. So what? Because at the end of the day, so what? What does it actually matter? Because if you use that as a crutch, then all you're doing is acknowledging defeat. Because you're saying that this thing that hinders me is the reason I never become anything I want to. Or reframe it. You can't create a better past, or you can't create a better future until you create a better past. How you view what happened for you in life and how you use it ultimately drives your future. We can all be victims of what happened. Adversity can really bury us, or it can bury us and make us reborn. We can be regrown out of it. So looking at your past, realizing the benefit that you had of these experiences and how you can use it for something better, and then create a better future because of your past. So to do that, though, you have to have some humility. You have to let your ego down,
Grace,
your fear. Everything that we have as far as adversity and setbacks driven from fear, which is all driven from creation up here. None of it exists. How we view what happened to us in the past, though, is only our perception and nobody else's. So like you talked about comparison, we can't compare it to anybody else. That's the theft of joy. We all know that. And knowing that, okay, I'm not competing against myself yesterday. I'm competing to be the person I want to be later down the road. So I don't have a superhero that's someone else in my life. It's me in 10 or 15 years. You can always be let down by somebody else. You can always compare yourself to someone else not knowing the reality of what they are actually doing. It's not an apples to apples conversation. So you can't compare an apple to an orange and it be the same thing. You have to compare yourself to the person that you desire to be, or scale yourself against your competition is yourself, but it wasn't from yesterday. It's to feel who you want to become, in my opinion. So like, I want to be my own superhero, but I strive to be the superhero in 10 or 15 years, not the superhero that I am today or last week. It's an unattainable goal. And because it's unattainable, it's not a destination. So there's this chase for accomplishment that we all have. And the chase for the accomplishment, and then getting the accomplishment and having that thing met, not enjoying the journey and the process to get there, is what I think is detrimental to society. For 12 years, Brian, one goal to buy on our pipeline. I had 7 days a week for 12 years. I obsessed over it. I thought about it every day, every waking moment. And when I got on that mountaintop, dude, I'm telling you what, the disappointment that I didn't feel happiness or joy or fulfillment at all. I own this company now. It was seemingly impossible to buy. Everything I ever had went into this. 2 days after, I was more empty and like gutted than ever before, because I didn't find the joy in the journey. And I had this disease about the destination. So I say destination disease, have joy in the journey. The real fulfillment in life is the day-to-day process and joy that we have. I would venture to say that your locker room time playing for the Houston Texans meant more to you than a game, one individual game, right? It's a continuous thing. Like, that locker room is the stuff that's always missed.
Yeah, and that's a whole different kind of perspective in general, because there's so much in what you just said I want to hit, that I can talk about football and the locker room and the people, and like that's where I think certain comparison is beneficial when you start talking about competition and high performers like that, because like I was in a group of 52 other men that were like-minded and had the same thing. That, like, obviously people say keep like the 5 people you're around. Dude, you're around 50 people that are motivated, dude, that elevates you. So like that, just, like the locker room always taught me to like stay around killers. But I want to strip back kind of what you said with kind of like my perspective in that realm, because I think most people suffer from perspective. I think all suffering is generated from perspective. Like I think like perspective is the suffering from perspective is the root cause of disease, like why you can't do things, like crippling fear, whatever. But you said the example of a crutch. Like, yeah, dude, if you have a crutch, if that's a personal narrative on why you can or can't do something, you're gonna limp. And so, okay, like be crutchless, and like how I like, because I hear people complain and and this is aggressive, but I think self-pity is the most unattractive self-quality in that realm. Well, why? And it's like, well, you're complaining about something that you're not doing. Like you're not asking questions to solve a problem. You're just like venting.
You're just bitching.
It's too relevant in society today. And our body, like, and again, we do like friction and hate, and some reason. That's why I think social media runs rampant in that regard too. But how I kind of view it, I just like if you're complaining, you're not leading. But like that means self and others in that realm. So if you start killing that, like I say, kill the devil quickly when it appears. So when self-pity and these things show up, stop it, deviate, ask the right questions. Why can't I do this stuff? Not why can't I can do this stuff. And if you spend like a wholehearted thing, you can't do it, okay, maybe you should try something else. But like most people don't spend enough time in the present moment trying to solve a problem and exhausting all resources. And dude, we have the internet now. You can learn any skill or capability. And kind of to your point in that realm of the journey and the destination, yeah, I completely agree that the destination's a disease. And the reason why is because it's not like reach the mountaintop, celebrate and retire kind of concept. Like, no, I think the root of happiness in the human brain and the human body is growth.
It's the chase.
It's the chase, it's the growth. You can look at why we get dopamine from this drive and these hunger and these pursuits. Or the nicotines and caffeines or whatever. We're all just like, we're trying to put band-aids on bullet holes in that realm, when really like we're just supposed to be driving after, again, what is supposed to be food, water, shelter. Like that's why we have like these things, and why fasting sharpens the mind is because like, okay, we're hungry, we need to get dialed in to go hunt. And then same thing, we need to have this dopamine and this motivator, like this chemical in our body that makes us hunt and gets us to kill. But regardless of the fact, like, if you're not growing, and like growing doesn't mean bank account, it doesn't mean titles and trophies and that kind of thing. This can be depth of relationship with your wife and your kids and whatever. Like, but you need to be growing and improving, because, and like I get into this deal because I help a lot of guys transition in life in that realm where it's what's a better way to say it? They identify with these titles, and because I think the titles and these destinations are the same thing in that regard, when really what you should do is, because like my guy out in LA has this saying that like forever we're all in over our heads. Like there's so much stimulus and problems and whatever, like just modern society is kind of fucked in that realm, but we're always going to be over our heads. So if you come to terms with that, the only thing that makes sense is to increase my capability. And that is growth. So that's business, life, decision-making, negotiation, like all these little aspects of business and life. I think his analogy is that like if I have a bigger bowl, meaning more capability, I can take on more, or I can tread water longer in that realm where it's like, okay, how do I, again, not identify with each mountaintop I'm chasing, but become this capable human? Because like a very simple delineation here is like, I want to be wealthy, I want to be rich, whatever. No, you want to be a human capable of generating wealth. So again, this protects you against the downside of life, recession, whatever, failure, massive injury in sports, whatever it ends. My whole world's not wrapped up in this title and this current success. I know I have this ridiculous capability that like, take all my shit away. I don't give a fuck. Like you put me in the middle of the fucking desert again, I'll build a city. Like I'll get my wealth back. Yeah. I'll protect my relationship, whatever it ends up being. I just think if we stop identifying with these titles and we identify with our capability, and that's where like, okay, now I have to monitor my capabilities. because I use, again, stupid analogies, but you remember that like horse game at the carnival where you spray water in the hole and the horse goes and hopefully your horse wins. But like all our capabilities are these horses. And there's certain times in life where, okay, I need to spray the money and the financial and the business structure side, but then I need to take care of health. Now I need to take care of family time and relationship with my kids. And like, that's the goal, is keep these capabilities. One, I hope they all grow. And then now you start addressing how, like, what is life? Life is time. It's how you, like, I teach this from 5-year-olds to 60-year-olds. Like, where you spend your time is where you see your results. Protect your fucking time.
It's the only thing that you cannot ever replace.
It's the only thing you can't ever replace. And like, I kind of got in a rut this last year. I was traveling a bunch. My fitness and all those kind of things went down. Me taking care of myself, I was being a hypocrite. I'm coaching against the things that I'm like
It's natural. It happens.
Yeah, that were happening to me. And again, like I have grace for myself, which is cool in that realm. But like, I didn't realize where I was letting my time bleed, because me and G have talked about this a bunch as of late. But okay, what's an analogy? Because I always try and tie like humans to nature and nature to humans in that realm. But like, I'm coaching military and these guys now, and I'm getting outdoor med certified. But you start going through marks, like how to identify like a human body, like when you walk up on a incident, whatever. But I see time in this way now, because I was letting my time bleed on certain things. Like, obviously you get a cut, you bleed, and like kind of tactical med like 101 is keep the blood in the body. And okay, time is blood, time is life, life is blood, and then you get into oxygen too. Breathing, there's breathing analogies in that too. But okay, so my thing in my head right now that I'm telling myself is like, tourniquet your time. Like, if like I'm bleeding because I'm giving time to people and like that don't respect my time, and or if it's business, it's not like a give and take thing. It's a one-way street.
This is a superpower.
Yeah, tourniquet your fucking time. And like, it's the same. It's a battery or blood, whatever you're talking about. You only have this much, and if you bleed, and like, so if you don't have it, if you don't charge your battery, or if you're not conscious of how you spend your time, you're not gonna have a lot of life to play with, and not gonna have a lot of time to get better and or improve relationships and do all these things we've been talking about.
So good. I talk about, my theme of the year has been priority awareness. I have an assistant who is the COO of my life. She runs everything for me. She literally tells me what I do, when I do it, and how I need to do it. It's amazing, by the way. So I made that investment at the end of last year to this year because my time was maxed. I could not physically, mentally push anymore without being severely detrimental to my mental and physical health. Priority awareness is my theme of the year. If it doesn't fit my top 3 priorities, it's probably a no. And the ability to say no is a transition that we get when we get a certain level of success, a certain level of people wanting our time. And these opportunities are amazing. The woman in the red dress from the Matrix, it's like this thing, and every time that we grow, the opportunity looks better. But if it doesn't fit what the priority list is for that year or that 10-year time frame, if it's not in the top 3 priorities for me, it's a no. And it's that simple. It is unfortunate sometimes because it's like, man, this opportunity could be life-changing, this is what I want, but does it fit the actual thing that I really want? Not being that prisoner of the moment. And to go back to the climb and the destination disease, I knew that after that moment of I'm on this mountaintop that I tried to climb for so long, and I get up on the mountaintop and I'm looking, I'm in the clouds, right? It's like, fuck, I made it. I'm the king, I made it. And so when I get to this point, I'm looking around, I'm like, man, it's kind of lonely up here. I don't feel any different. Sun comes up, the cloud cover passes, and I look around, and it's just a step. It's not the top of the mountain. It was just part of the climb. And not enjoying that climb is what had the setback internally, because the external accomplishment was nothing. It was the ability to grow to a certain point to get that accolade or that accomplishment met. It wasn't the ownership of our pipeline. It was the person internally I became to get to that point. And so when I look at the climb and success criteria and what I focus on, it's not the outcome, because I can't always control the outcome, but I can control my intent and my effort. So with good intention and max effort, I call it persistent patience, my pursuit in life. So persistent in my endeavors, I'm relentless. I'm a fucking dog. You better kill me to get me to stop. I'm patient with the outcome, whatever it is, because I know that I can force that timeline, but it can go bad. So I'm patient with the result and persistent and relentless with my effort, and my intent's always good. And saying no is like no more than stiff arming a linebacker that's coming through. When you're running down the sideline and this dude comes up and he's trying to tackle you, the defense is always going to come at you, and that defense is sometimes good opportunity with good intent, but it doesn't matter. He might not be trying to blow your ACL out, but he's still trying to get you down. And sometimes you just have to know that these things are roadblocks and not part of the journey. And it's hard to say no sometimes, but saying no is a complete sentence. You can say no, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things. And like, learn, like, okay, like if saying no, saying no, I'm a people pleaser. Saying no is super hard for me. So I had to like sit there and figure out new ways to say no. And I had to have a plan. And like what you said, you have the assistant, you have these priorities. And I coach all these things for my business folks too. And because you can do the battery analogy a bunch of different ways. Like obviously like your energy is one, but like where you spend your time is another one. Well, 60% goes to work, 20% goes to family, 10% goes to my training. Split it up how you want. Just all we're trying to do is tangibilize the intangible, only to understand that, okay, I only have this much energy and this much time in a day. Well, this makes scheduling a superpower and a lever. And then now you talk about time over time, like, and your repetition, where like, because like physiologically, you also like, I think scheduling is really important because again, I attack breathing and physiology and energy a lot. And what I do with business folks and pro athletes, but like mentally, like you get a certain amount of deep work in a day. So you better prioritize like the right shit first. You get like research is a little split, but like you get in essence like 3 hours of deep problem solving work. And it's like smallest sort, like you get 1 hour of super deep work, the ability to like completely think around a problem. And then you get like 2 hours of like 87% of that, I think is what the research says. But after that, like it should be monotonous delegation, it should be busy work, it should be that kind of thing. Or it's like, because like also you get into like structure of the day with a business, like, well, why are we having meetings that are this like monotonous stuff? Like, can this meeting be an email? Can this email be a text? Whatever, like how can we simplify and filter it? But to your point of like the person you're becoming, the step that you saw, that like it's just this eternal climb in that realm too. I think old problems have old solutions. Like you read Stoic philosophy, you read even Buddhism and different things from 2,000 years ago, like discipline, consistency, persistence, all these things show up as like when you're mourning, all these things are, these solutions have been available to us for this entire time.
Basics.
But like the superpower I think you're talking about is like the ability to, I don't know when the top of the mountain's coming. I had Coach Lou on a while on my podcast, and I've just been like sinking my teeth into like this concept is that, because I think it's very true, is like hard work pays off, but nobody tells you when. Like you don't know when that's fucking coming.
And that's why I don't think it's an outcome.
Yeah.
I just have, because my intent is pure, my effort is all out.
Yeah.
I know that it's going to come back the way it should.
Yeah, and it's like snapshot versus big picture. Like if I take a snapshot of like the fucking stock market right now, bam, but like if I zoom out, like, okay, S&P 500 index fund, like it goes up forever. But like in that realm, it's, he has another variant where, the cool thing is why it hit so hard with me is like, he goes, do you have the fucking balls to sprint in the dark? Like, can you run as hard as you can? Meaning it's like, can you be like max effort, like again, task to task to task for a long enough time to know that you crossed the fucking finish line?
Who are you when it is the hardest?
Yeah.
Because who you are in that point is who you always are at any point. Knowing that it's going to suck, it's going to be painful. Having pain and being a growth-oriented person should be expected, because growth doesn't come without pain. That's why they call it growing pains.
It's adaptation. And that's people. I think people have a terrible view of the word stress right now. Like you need stress to adapt and grow. You have to break down a muscle. It experiences stress in order to hopefully you fuel it back the right way and it becomes muscle. Like it just.
you're not overstressed, you're over distracted and overstimulated
Yeah.
with what doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, and
a
it's
lot
like
of times.
hormesis. Like you want these stressors to be like manageable inside your energy in that realm, so that the growth is continual, and you never like now you get into like the testosterone pandemic and all these things. But really, what we want, like again, pain is perspective. Like if you think everything's stressful, it is. Like thought is a full body fucking decision.
1000%.
So it's like, okay.
1000%.
And so like, if you, cause like just for me to like lift my arm, like I have to like this whole cascade of like synapses in the brain. Now you get into like literally like electrolytes and calcium to trigger these muscles to lift and whatever. Like thought is a full body fucking decision.
It is.
And so you need to learn how to protect your thoughts. And I think people's relationship with the word stress is fucking abysmal right now. And so like how I view, so I coach this like off of a principle, because that's what I think breathing helps you breathe in and out of stress, particularly like physiological stress in that realm.
1000%. I think it's one of the most powerful things. Like I teach my daughter that. If she
Yeah.
crashes her scooter or
Yeah.
bike, breathing through.
Yeah.
Like I sit there and I calm her down. I don't really say anything but how to breathe.
Yeah.
And through nose, out through mouth. Like,
Yeah.
and I just repeat that.
And
it's so simple,
slow,
but,
and slow
dude,
the wind
10
chime.
seconds, she's done.
Yeah, and so, but like, so how I view this is like, so Eckhart Tolle has this bomb quote, and Brian McKenzie fed me this a long time ago, but the sign of a healthy organism is that emotion is a short-term response. And if you break that down, it's like, and like, I story tell this in my own way when I present and stuff, but it's like be it like guys want to say I'm a dog, you know, that kind of thing in sports and whatever, but like be a dog. Like a dog gets in a fight at the park, does it come home and tell its owner and think about its fight and like call its friends? And no, like a dog drinks its water, eats its food, down regs like us. Be a dog. Like no animal, like there's another famous quote, but like I've never seen a wild animal sorry for itself. Their emotions are so short term. They're animals. We need to be more like, again, return to nature,
Right.
and not live in this long-term regret or think about what I said wrong that day or worry about the future. These are all long extended emotions. We need to fucking cut that down.
Learn from the past and not repeat it in the future. Be in the present moment, because it is a gift to
Yeah.
be present. And then understanding that one of the most glorifying things that ever happened to me was to be completely arrogantly insulted and smile as
Oh,
a
yeah.
reaction, because I knew that it wasn't true, and even if it was, I need to acknowledge it if what was said, because it came out from a bad intention, but if it's true, regardless of the intent of the comment, whatever. But it didn't impact me. And so Henry Ford has a famous quote, and I use it in a speech for a company or a core value speech. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah, so I have a couple perspectives there in that regard. But in that regard, like, because what was your quote? Like, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And so, like, all I hear is this, like, when I hear somebody else try and influence my state,
Right.
in that regard, I think that's a problem. And so, because like, and if that's what is motivating you, that is also a problem, because like a simple quote here is like, if you live for the cheers, you're going to die by the fucking booze, you know? But also how I, like as of late when I journal a bunch, but like, if somebody praises you, look for the lie in it. If somebody if somebody criticizes you, look for the truth in it.
Yep.
It's a really easy way to stay even keel.
Yeah. Because we are not as bad as we think we are, and we're normally not as good as we think we are. Right? Like there's
Yeah.
a fine line there where
I just think I think we're too in our fucking head these days. And so why I think breathing and like how you feel is such a tool is get out of your head and get into your body.
yes.
And like that's like particularly in stress, like when you have to make fast, like a football player or like hockey player in between shifts and whatnot. Like if you're thinking about the bad thing right then, your working memory, like what you can actually hold, like kind of like multitasking, which isn't really like a massive thing. Obviously we can walk and talk and whatever, but working memory is like an app on your phone. You only have one open at a time. So get out of the negative, like keep the emotion short term with a mental skill. I'm like, okay, I'm being super negative, get out of my head, get into my body. And then when you change how you feel, you change how you think.
Absolutely. And so there's a book Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy wrote called The Gap in the Game. You set a goal and you start here, this is the goal. I get to here. What do you acknowledge? Do you acknowledge the gain from where you started to where you're at, or the gap of what you didn't accomplish? And the gap of what you don't accomplish is often a perfectionism thing. It's an ideal that is unattainable. And perfectionism in itself is like, it's an epidemic, because perfectionism is something that nobody can achieve because it doesn't actually exist. If you have a goal set out and you measure the progress and you don't get it, go until you get that thing accomplished and figure out why you're not getting it at the rate you thought you should. So measure it. The data component, you can't manage something if you can't measure it. So you have to be able to manage to measure your growth. So don't get caught up on this perfect thing, because perfect does not fucking exist.
No, I preach that all the time. Like, perfect is like so detrimental to everybody. And
Like, define it for me. You know, what is perfect? Don't give me between the line, give me the line. I
No.
can't read in between the lines.
No, but like that's where I think people have unrealistic like expectations in that regard, where perfect's unattainable. Even like a perfect game in baseball, the pitcher still throws balls, you know? Like it's so stupid, but I think people sleep on the fact that so much of life is task completion as opposed to task perfection. And
Ooh, that's good.
I just made that up. I like
That's
that.
really good. That's
but,
a banger. Dang, we got to get that clip.
Yeah. But in that realm, like, if it gets done, that's the progress that stacks up into this success. But like, if perfect is continually going to be that stone in your shoe, like that's going to forever be a problem on every task.
Yep.
So the faster I can move past, and like, because I shatter that day one, like with all my clients, like there is no fucking perfect in the world.
A lot of that's fear driven.
Yeah, a lot of it's fear driven, but so many people, like what I found is like, they think they said the wrong thing. I go, you're never gonna say the perfect thing, let alone in like a high pressure scenario. But also when like you look back on how you view others, I think that's important too. They didn't say the perfect thing, or they didn't sell me perfectly. Like, they're not perfect. And like, it's also in like, now you start putting people on pedestals. Like,
Well, perfect is also a perception, right? So what is a perfect deliverable to me and to you could be completely different.
yeah. But like people like, oh, like even when they like, because like he's not a perfect fit for our company, like, or whatever it ends up being. You need to have a tangible threshold where like, all right, he's like 87%, but like I have to understand in my bias of like selecting humans, or selecting again a process to go forward with, or whatever, that like it's okay to have some part of a human or some part of a process that conflicts with mine, because you don't know. Now you get into multivariable like environments and complexity of life, where like, again, like I think systems analysis is important for like solving and making efficiency, because I view it in this realm that like most people like try, what's the most important thing to fix in the company, or what's the most important person in the company, or whatever it ends up being. But like, I view the most important, like when I'm looking at optimizing a human, and it just so happens a lot of time it's breathing. But like, what's the most important variable in a system is the variable that's most limiting. So what's holding you back the most? Is it my perspective? Is it my relationship with perfection? Is it my breathing? Is it my diet? It doesn't matter, but you need to figure out what's holding you back the most, and let's start there when we solve problems.
Inverted thinking.
Yeah.
So Charlie Munger, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Not as much. But
so like, we have this business. What would have to happen in this business for me to be bankrupt next week? So think of the absolute worst case scenario, and then reverse it to make sure that never happens.
Yeah.
And so it's just like recognizing the absolute catastrophic worst, and then the worst, the second worst, and then go backwards from there, and then flip it on the opposite side to prevent them things from happening. It's called inverted thinking. Charlie Munger was huge on it.
So I use mine to establish, I use my perspective on like the most important variable in a system is the variable that's most limiting. Mine is to like create systems of protection, like in that realm, because time is a variable here too. But like the purpose of all this is to establish a standard. And then I make sure that I'm working with a competitive person that has some pride and has some intention behind what they do. Because how I define pride is like, it's what spurs you on when you fall below your standards. And my job as a coach is to keep you hitting your fucking standard, or to raise the standard.
Right.
And then if you're a leader, you need to hold the fucking standard. And so these are all skills. But in that realm, if I understand in essence what the standard is, or the system that supports the standard, I can solve problems down here to eventually raise like the tide concept.
Love it. You talk about perfectionism and ideals, they're created. So is fear. Fear is probably one of the biggest restraints or causes of inaction in life. Inaction is a huge cost to success. So when in pursuit of something, when I first started this show, I have a third grade level grammar. I have a organizational dumpster fire skill set. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's laughable how bad I am.
Oh,
at certain things.
you should see my business model. Yeah.
So I knew that going into this. So was I confident about starting a podcast? Well, no, because one of my biggest fears in my entire life has been speaking on camera to the public in front of a classroom. Like it is something that would make me piss my pants 20 years ago. So it's been a catastrophic fear of mine forever. The second one to that is taking my shirt off in front of other people. I conquer both them fears daily now, right? So like them were my.
You're way too handsome and fit to have that fear.
Well, I wasn't one day. That's why I had it.
know.
So I overcame all these fears and adversities, knowing that they were setting me back. And fear is so massive. If you think of it from a visual component, like it looks so wide, like it's miles long. It looks like it's so deep. You're standing up on a sledge and you're looking down, and it's just this massive body of water, right? Fear, miles long. It looks like it's so deep, but then you take one step into it and you realize it's only inches deep. And that one step is what absolutely has to happen to get over it. Because there's a lot of people that could accomplish great things in 20 days, but it might take them years for day one to start.
Oh, yeah.
And whenever in pursuit, or if you want something, I think the fear component is going to be glaringly in front of you, and it's going to be the hardest thing. Commitment of 100%. So I call it Pursuit 151. Pursuit 151, you got 100 shares of commitment and 100 shares of confidence. You have to have 100% commitment to the thing, only 51% confidence. Because if you have 51%, it means you know enough, you know more than half, right? You're confident enough that you can grow through it because you're committed 100%. Commitment has to be 100%. Confidence only 51%. When I started this, it's probably about right. I was probably about 51% confident, but now I'm probably 75 or 80% confident because I put time in. And so, like, whenever you look at this perfection thing, there's a study done that I've seen. It talked about clay pots. This classroom was tasked with building clay pots. The left side has to make the perfect clay pot, one perfect one. The right side had to make a volume, a massive amount. The left side's clay pot was about as well done as the second 100 on the right side. So the team that was tasked with volume actually made way better clay pots than the one that was tasked with the perfect, because it was the reps. So we're not going to get better by wishing it can happen. It's by reps. It's by diving into the thing that we're scared of and not being scared or not being afraid. Being fearful is okay. Being afraid is not. Being afraid means that you're afraid to fail, which means you're afraid to try. Being fearful just means that you recognize it, put your arm around fear and say, come on, bitch, you're with me, and let's go. But I'm in control, and it's going to come with me, knowing that it's a prerequisite for anything we take on.
Yeah, and so like, which I love. I like that clay pot analogy because, like, again, anybody that's getting, like, I've been kind of borderline mentoring a bunch of people that do what I do in that realm. But I just say go get your reps, because again, I believe in like iterations more than like in reps and iterations more, like, because I've honed my storytelling to get my points across. Most people in the breathing world know the science, know the leverage, but they can't tell you to where it has any meaning for you. And so, like, I think reps in that realm. Same
Because
with,
you're not telling a story, you're just telling anecdotal, like, information.
yeah, but I just want to elaborate on your point of fear in that realm, because again, are humans being a human? Are animals being an animal? And I don't think people respect what fear really is or the logic behind it, because, like, the biggest thing is like fear of the unknown. How can you be scared of something you don't know? It's illogical. And like, and you have to like have more capability or have more reps or at least perception and like influence over like in this environment that you're potentially scared of in that realm. But like the fear is illogical because it's unknown. But what you find in psychology is that our brains hate uncertainty. Like, we would rather be uncomfortable than uncertain. And so in that realm, like, because you see this in life play out so many times. Like, people stay in jobs that they fucking hate
Yep.
because at least they have the certainty of they know where their money's coming
Safety,
from.
right.
Or they stay in a relationship that's like average or sucks, or the guy beats me or something, because at least they know where their love's coming from. Our brain craves certainty. It's for protection. The same reason we like latch onto routines is because, okay, we don't have the uncertainty of having to make a decision at every point and every turn. Like, you don't have to decide like which way I'm going to turn into my bedroom, you know? But like those are part of our routines and our known paths, so our body's really comfortable there. Because again, it's, am I alive or dead? Do I have a system in place that like gets my food, water, and shelter? You know, it's like super simple. But like once we understand that our humans being a human, no, we have to be uncomfortable and experience stress to grow. Okay, now it's reps and iterations. And like, again, like there's breadcrumbs to success. People have started podcasts before, people have started businesses before. Are you asking the right questions? Are you asking the right positive questions? Why can I do this and how can I do this, as opposed to why can't I do this and how can't I do this and why shouldn't I do it and what's the downside? Yeah, respect the downside, but like at the end of the day, systems and standards will hopefully trump that. But I think people, when it comes to fear, they don't understand the illogical nature of it, where it's like, me and G talked about this the other day, it's not a fucking mountain. Like, and you talked about like getting above the clouds or whatever, but like if you fucking move the clouds aside, you'll realize it's 10 fucking solid steps of reps and iterations and problem solving. They got me to the life I wanted, but I had to go. And I see this in athletes and military guys that are transitioning in life, where particularly if you're creating a business or you're creating a new life in general, like people are so fearful to take that first step when let's play this out in our head. Let's get some of the potential options out there. But like, even if you do something for 2 years and you realize you hate it, fucking stop and change directions. But it's not 2 wasted years. It's 2 years well spent, knowing that I never have to spend another minute of my time doing that.
Yeah.
And it's okay. But like, I also say like take shots. Just go. Just go. Because even if it's just to hear the gun go off, like those are like valid shots. But like standing still, like in nature, if you're stagnant, you rot.
Yeah. Steve Jobs, he did a commencement speech for Stanford in like 2014, I think. And he talks about connecting the dots. And so like, we are where we deserve to be today. What we have done or not done in life is what we deserve, because regardless of our desires, we've earned what we have today, and nothing more, nothing less. We have what we should have. We are where we should be based on our action. Steve Jobs talks about connecting the dots, and he was given up for adoption when he was born. His mom, his birth mother, said that basically made it mandatory that his parents that adopted him would send him to college, and they had college degrees. So this couple had college degrees, and then toward the like adoption period, they ended up not wanting to adopt him. They wanted a girl instead. So he went back into the adoption agency and then got adopted by 2 people that did not have college degrees, but promised the mom, the birth mother, that he would go to school. And the birth mother almost stopped it from happening, like, which that whole thing's fucked up in itself, but that's here and there. So he ends up being adopted by these 2 middle-class, blue-collar working parents, and they promised that they would send him to school. So he ends up going to, I think, Reed University, which was like a Stanford financial commitment, you know, at that time. He goes there for 2 or 3 semesters and is miserable. Steve Jobs quits college, drops out, has no dorm room, has nothing. He's sleeping on the floor of his friend's dorm room, and then he's going to calligraphy courses sporadically. He thought it was sweet, thought it was cool. No idea why, but he had no direction, no clarity on what he wanted to do, but he goes into these calligraphy courses, and that is the font and the color scheme used for the MacBook today. He changed the fucking world by following his gut instinct and his passion. Not being able to see the end is natural. Having faith that whatever happens is supposed to happen is what the meaning of life is all about to me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm sitting here today 5 years ago. If you would have told me 1 year ago today, if you would have told me that I'd be pushing 100 episodes already, I would have laughed. Because top 2% of podcasts have less than 21 episodes.
Yeah, I've seen other stats
Yeah.
like that. But like, again, like the logic again here is like what's coming will come, we'll face it when it does. And it's like, well, like who do I want to be when I face it? I want to be have these capabilities. I want to have this resilience, these systems in place where like, that's why you build more capability. You build a bit bigger cup to handle the fucking world.
Right.
Is okay. Like that's what, like I should be prepared for what's coming. And if I have high expectations of myself, like this needs to be like, I need to have as much armor on as possible.
You can't be intentional with what you do, your action. You can't be present in the current moment. You can't be aware of your surroundings and have priority awareness if you focus on things out of your control. You have to focus on the controllables.
No, I think confidence comes from competence. Like the more tools I have on my tool belt, the more knowledge, the more wisdom, and wisdom comes from experience, which is reps and iterations and failures and that kind of thing, where it's like, if I'm a very competent human, blue collar, white collar, doesn't matter in that realm. No matter like what I set my sights on, like give it enough time, like you'll figure out if it's going to work or not, but you're going to be more successful than not. But also you won't have fucking regrets of sitting there waiting for the perfect time or the perfect
Perfect time
opportunity.
is now. And if it's not now, it was yesterday, so start now.
Yeah, and the logic there is like, you can't change yourself up to this point. You have what you have and move forward. And the more people you can just like shock into understanding that, and that, because again, like the brain is so fucking powerful. Like I could drop everything and become a firefighter tomorrow, you know? Like you have no responsibility to be the person you were 5 minutes ago, 5 days ago, 5 years ago. In that realm, you can always change. And I think that's the only constant in life anyways, is change. So like you better get fucking comfortable with it.
It's the only thing that stays the same in life is change.
Yeah.
There's a concept in strategic coach called the 4 C's, and it's commitment, so committing, then you gain courage, and then you gain the capability because you have, the commitment's there, the courage is there, and then you gain the capability, and then you become confident. And it's this life cycle.
Yeah.
Your commitments become bigger, your confidence becomes higher, and it just grows. And I do like an XY graph for this presentation when I speak at schools now. And it's overcoming fear and confidence growth. They're hand in hand.
Yeah.
As you overcome your fear, your confidence grows, and it is never going to end. Fear is always going to be there. But understanding and being aware enough to know that it's always going to be there and that I can't control it like coming in. I can just control when it comes in what I do with it.
Yeah, but like the thing is that one of my arguments now is people don't know how they feel.
Yes, because they're not present.
No, they're not present. Or like the thing I hate with athletes is that they need their watch or their whoop or something to tell them how they feel or how they recovered. And when like part of my job as my coach is like, I want you to know how you feel. Like, and also I don't want you to live and die off of a metric either. Like obviously like what you can't, like if you don't manage something, you can't measure it. But like we use the whoops and stuff to solve problems with sleep. But like once we solve the problem, I don't need you to wake up and look at your HRV every fucking day.
Yes.
Like you need to be able to go. And like another thing in life that like just, and professionally, like obviously in professional sports too, which I work a lot of with athletes across all sports in that realm, is like, you don't get the gift of being 100% every day to face your problems and face the competition.
When's the last time you were 100%?
Yeah, playing the game. No, I know, but accept it.
Yeah.
It's just what the fucking life in realistic manner is. Strip away all the other narratives. And like, and because I'm going to rant here, but in that same sense where like everybody's trying to optimize right now in that realm. But like my saying, because like a lot of my guys red light and do all this recovery shit and acupuncture and all that kind of stuff. But like, I don't give a fuck how much you red light until I know that you can red line. Like, I want to know what your capacity is. And like, until you know that you can, like, and like, cause I used to argue with myself and I've gone back and forth on it. Like, are you a workhorse or are you a racehorse? Like, pro athletes are racehorses. Like, you do need to optimize and recover and that kind of thing. But like, the workhorse got most of these guys what they wanted. They got the opportunity. So like, nobody should scrap the workhorse, like, ability where it's like, no, like, hey, you might spend fucking 8 years in starting a business where you get 5 hours of sleep. That's okay. And I know you've been through that whole cycle, but like there's areas where like you can't balance like through some of these growth phases because the time is like such a like limited resource in that realm. Your energy and your effort like your body might not be optimized.
I'm never going to be balanced, but I can be intentional with my time. So I'm intentional with my 5 hours of sleep to maximize that intent with my intent.
Yeah.
If I'm home with my family, 100% personal, business, 100% professional. I just wrote this down because it goes right in line with what we were talking about. You don't have to be 100% to give 100%.
No.
If you only have 75% recovery, that 75%, go give 100% of that at that time.
Yeah, I use that analogy all the time too.
You're not going to be 100% majority of the time. I couldn't tell you if I've actually been 100% for a long time. And the other component to that, you can leave it open, it's good. The other component to that is over-analyzing the data. Because like the Whoop, I track my macros, I've been through the Whoop, the watches, the Fitbits. For 10 years straight, I probably did it all. I don't do any of it now, and I'm better shape now because I know. I took all the data and measured it to a point that I didn't need to measure it anymore because it's intuitive.
Yeah, and it's like, well, like I say, like, know when you win the game. Like, most people don't like know, and they don't.
Sometimes that game is over. We don't need that anymore.
Yeah, and it's again, like, we have enough feel. Like, once you get back to feel and intuition, like, once you can feel that clearly again, it's unnecessary. It's an extra stressor in that realm.
That was the detriment to my growth for so long. The thing that I thought was helping me get where I wanted to go was actually limiting me.
I know, but look at, like, say a business, not like, do you think like the number in your bank account's like actually the clearest indicator of like your wealth and your equity? No, it's not.
Right.
Because like sometimes like bank account might be fucking low, but I know how much I put into the business. I know what more my investments are at. And it's the same thing in that regard. But I just think the optimizing side of that is just, it's misinterpreted at times because, again, like, it'd be awesome if we all got 100% battery and 100% feel, and like we woke up like every day like just with that capability, but it's not realistic.
No, it's never going to happen. And I think like the ultimate ideal for me personally with all the measurables was to measure how I felt. Like to be I feel like shit today, what does the data say?
Yeah.
And then at some point, you know intuitively what the data would say without it being there.
Yeah.
So like I would use the data as a metric to manage how I felt. So the data was the logic to hit, like to counter my emotion at that time, and they put them together to enough for a while, and you don't need it as much.
Yeah, and like again, use it till it's not necessary. Again, it's task completion to a point there too, but it's also addition by subtraction. Like if this thing has become a stressor, even though it's not, like it shouldn't be, and even with HRV, like my baseball players are like, oh, I'm under 100, I'm whatever their problem is, like it's a non-issue if the execution's still there, because like HRV is not an indicator of how they're going to pitch that day all the time. Right. So just like creating realistic relationships with feedback too, because like all we're doing is operating on feedback all the time.
It's definitely important. It's definitely something, but it's not everything. Like you got to have it to a certain extent, but then does your ability to measure how many free throws you can make out of 100 tell you what you do when it's 5 seconds left in the game? It's the game-winning shot.
No,
right. So it's like it's a component. It's a puzzle piece, but it's not the puzzle.
Yeah, and I love the puzzle analogy for a lot of things, but it's I just don't overinvest in one feedback loop. It's like you should know how you feel, know how you sleep, but like it's same as like you don't want to like there's certain people that like you'll delegate responsibilities to in that realm, but it's like one person isn't telling you how to like live your life, you know? Like
there is no one perfect set for any diet, any training. There's not a perfect scheme for anything. Right? No, the perfect thing is what works for Brian and what works for Jake.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be the same more than likely because we live different lives.
Or we have different puzzles.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so everyone's puzzle wasn't going to be put together the same. And the part of that though is it's fucking okay.
Yeah.
That's just part of life. That it is okay. And anybody that tells you that it doesn't believe that, then they can go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're in it for them. So I want to talk about one other thing real quick, and then we'll wrap up. So I'm working on a project, and I'm writing a book, and it'll probably be done next year. There's such a massive issue in the blue-collar workforce. The show is about how the iron builds infrastructure, for me personally. Heavy equipment and weights. So I grew up operating equipment, and then because I was a fat kid that had this like massive adversity, I turned to the weight. And so iron, for me, represents heavy equipment and weightlifting. And it built my personal infrastructure and my professional infrastructure and what I do professionally. So how the iron built my infrastructure is the project, it's a book. And there's 3 phases to it. The iron foundation, so I talk about the breakdown. The breakdown is addressing your setbacks, adversity, your fears, your pains. You break them down. So break down that pain of your current reality, your current environment. The second part is the bridge. So the iron foundation, and then building the infrastructure, which is the bridge. So you have to build a bridge away from the breakdown. So right now we're sitting here, we're in this shitty environment. We're in this bad place full of fear and adversity and victim mindset. We have to build a bridge away from this place, not knowing exactly where we're going to go, but we have to bridge away from it. And when you build that bridge, it's the lonely road. So maybe post NFL career for you where you're out on the road by yourself and you're doing this thing, and it is very lonely and it is very awkward stage because you're not associating with the people that you used to, but you're not good enough yet to associate with the people that you desire to eventually. So you build a bridge away from the breakdown, then it's the build up or the highway to success. And that was connecting the dots, the iron and infrastructure for me. Iron pipeline, max effort muscle, and my fear all having a baby make the iron infrastructure. So 3 frames, you have the breakdown, the bridge, and the build up. And I'm writing a book, making a guide about it, but everything that we just talked about fits directly in there because it all starts with facing the adversity and the fear, understanding it's okay, but understanding that I can stay in this shitty place or I can go on this path. I can build this road that isn't done yet. The road doesn't exist. But I can't stay here anymore because the pain of staying the same is bigger than the pain of change. And just being able to take that leap of faith is huge because you don't know what it looks like. You don't have the confidence or the faith has to be there to some capacity. And what you're doing now, you probably had a lot of these experiences. You're on the road, you're tired as shit, you're exhausted. It's a long, long day. You got a long night. You're jacked up on caffeine. Your mind is wandering. But getting back to the breathing, sticking to that basics. It's what is going to keep you sane when you're on that lonely road because it is exhausting and it is very hard and difficult. But often it's simple because you have the basics, you have the foundation there. Everything that I just described is chasing edges. It's what you've done. And I just want to commend you for taking this leap of faith. We haven't even talked about this, but I know, like, just by what you're doing, what that looks like. So I commend you for that. It's a journey of a lifetime. And accomplishing the end goal isn't going to be the thing that gives you fulfillment. It's going to be the journey to get there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But like, because I try and find little simple sayings that, again, demystify the process. And just it's something that you've said a couple times now, but people misinterpret they're trying to collect these accomplishments, and so like to your dots analogy in general, it's not about collecting dots, it's about connecting dots. Mm-hmm. And that bridge away from the human you are isn't, again, like I look at things like a puzzle in general, and like the puzzle pieces are different sizes too. Because like when you try and replace like a locker room in football or like professional football or like special ops or whatever you're doing in life, like it's really hard in that realm to go one for one. Like I'm not going to get the same high, I'm not going to get the same camaraderie, I'm not going to get the same atmosphere that I did in that realm. So I need to figure out a new puzzle. So now I get my camaraderie from the weight room, I get my structure from my business, I get my love or my feedback from another thing. Like again, so like you shouldn't try and always replace the one for one concept, but like to the pain and iron side of it, like it's like I just want to demystify it. And this, I don't know what the simplest way to say it is, but like it's okay to hate where you're at. Like it's a cycle. It's a cycle, and it's like, and if you had too much like weight on the identity, like, but like one thing I think blue collar guys sleep on is their fucking work ethics off the fucking charts, and that solves so many problems because a lot of times guys come out of the NFL and they're entitled. And they think they should be like
winning solves a lot of problems until you don't win anymore.
Yeah, but they think they should start at halfway up the mountain. But like if you like the superpower is to like go down to the bottom of the mountain, come back up, and like that's a variant of your bridge in that regard. But like if you can feel the pain of where you're at, and it's like not physical pain, but it's more like frustration with.
You have to embrace it.
Yeah, and like you can't change where you are right now and the capabilities that you have.
You can just change what it looks like.
You can build systems. You can start, and like Zig Ziglar has this stupid quote, but I like it. But like you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So you have to find a habit that leads to a capability or a book or whatever, a course or whatever you're going to use to improve your capability at the time. Now it's just like, I think like once you commit to things, like it's almost like that next dot that you just connected. Now you have 5 new dots to choose from, and you click one and it's 5. It's just this web, because like maybe you're jumping from welding into real estate or something like that, but like you get around one realtor that now sends you to these courses or these people to talk to and have coffee with, and it's just like this momentum grows once I don't know if this applies, but like if a fucking like flower's dying, like you don't fix the flower, you fix the environment. Just building this bridge away from where you're at, the environment changes and you get new soil and you get new sunlight and you get new people, and I just think once, like at the end of the day, just go, like jump without a parachute, whatever, you'll build one while you're falling or whatever the stupid sayings are. But like, I just think once you get past the fear and the pain, it gets really easy to gain momentum. But like you can't, like a rock's not going to roll unless you push it, kind of thing.
And the law of acceleration.
Yeah.
You know, inaction is stagnant, it doesn't move.
Yeah.
Acceleration happens with just a little bit of movement.
Yeah,
and then that's when the growth happens and everything starts to happen. The commitment factor you mentioned, that's why Pursuit 151, 100% commitment is a non-negotiable. If you are fully committed, and when I say fully committed, you commit to this thing and you commit or die. So like it's a commitment of life or death. If you look at it from that, if you want to be successful or you want to accomplish things as much as you want to breathe, then you're going to be successful, right?
Yeah.
40T.
Because what is that? That's Eric Thomas.
Eric Thomas,
yeah, but like, so I used to, honestly, dude, I haven't thought about this in a fucking decade, but I used to tell people, I'm just a risk taker in general, but gambling, whatnot, but I used to say I only make bets that I can't afford to lose, because that's the only way I know I'll be committed. And so it's
that's
just
awareness though.
But it's like until I said like fuck it, I'm gonna go play arena ball, I'm gonna go to Canada, and those all earned me my opportunity to play in the NFL. But like there are things that I couldn't afford to lose, but I didn't have any money, so like that was my only commitment, you know. But I think if you understand that in general, like I say, commitment's medicine. It's the same reason, like once I pick a goal, it makes things so black and white, because there's so much gray area. And if you have like a gray area goal, like
gray area, anything in life is detrimental.
But now you don't have a feedback loop to know if you're on path or not, because
and you can negotiate with yourself.
And it's crazy how easy it is to negotiate with yourself in that realm. That's why, like, once you know something's right to do, you have 5 seconds to make the right decision. Go. I need to work out. Go. Like, no, I need to send these emails. Go. Like, it's literally psychology. Your brain will start to reason with you after 5 seconds. Yep. But in that regard, like, if you understand that commitment's medicine, it's the same with committing to one girl. Now you don't have to like have 3 text message strings going on, and you can't remember. Like, this is my personal. You know, like, did I tell you this story? Did I not tell you?
Well, it's like the anxiety of so many options and so many things and variables out there.
Cognitive dissonance is a massive problem. That's why it takes so much time to pick a fucking Netflix show. You know. But like, in that regard, but just like if you can just go and make that first commitment to like, hey, I want this type of life for myself, and commit to it, like everything will follow suit.
One of the hardest things I had to realize was I didn't have what I wanted at one point. And if you haven't got what you wanted, you're not worthy of it.
No.
Being worthy or deserving is you are worthy and deserve what you have. And so like I wasn't worthy of anything else, but I had to just realize that's okay.
I also think people don't know what the fuck they're committing to. Like, cause like you can't, like you don't get the prize without paying the price. And so I view this in my coaching in a different way, but I coach, like, before I even get into goal setting and stuff, because like people have all these wants and desires, and Naval Ravikant has this dope definition of desire. Desire is a contract with yourself to be unhappy until you get this thing. But that means unhappiness is discomfort, doing shit you don't want to do, short-term deferment, fucking pain, like agitation, stress, whatever it ends up being. But as a coach, my job is for you to tell me what you want and the standard of like you want to execute at. So there's no room for complaining and self-pity because you told me you wanted to pay the price to do this. My job, I use this stupid analogy of the king and the Rottweiler. It's an old like parable in that realm. But it's just like the king used to like pass out drunk and like people would steal his jewelry off him and stuff. So he started putting his necklace on this Rottweiler. Nobody fucked with his crown and stuff anymore. I'm the Rottweiler as a coach. Like, I'm going to protect your standard of performance, but you don't, because you told me what you want and we got super clear on the cost, you don't get to complain.
Because guess what? That when they want to complain, that's what you signed up for.
Yeah,
and there is a known cost for this thing.
Yeah, and I said it earlier, like, if you're complaining, you're not leading. Definitely not others, but for sure not yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like, once you can lead yourself, now you can lead others, and that's how you grow a business.
Absolutely.
Become a leader on a team, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't even talk about Brian Peters, the phenomenal human himself. We got to come back to this. You are going to be a return guest.
I'll hop on again, but
you better be.
I got the dog in the car, so I got to get him out here soon. Yeah.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brian Peters chasing edges all day, all night. He's nonstop. He's relentless in his pursuit. His dog's in the truck, so we got to take care of business.
Yeah.
We're chasing edges. Thanks for coming out, BP. Appreciate you.
Yep.
This episode is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. For all your supplement needs, go to maxeffortmuscle.com.